Hello, this is Gary King with Group 6 in Week 10, even chapter. We're on Chapter 18. Apologize in advance, I got baby watching duty, so if you hear a little baby, that's mine. And so this week, covering Chapter 18, we're going to talk about creating a review and coordinate process to increase quality of our work. And I've been working with Olwardar Fairden, myself, Gary King, to do this. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, just to introduce, our goal here is to enable development and operations to reduce the risk of production changes before they are made. It's important in doing this to understand the 5-step control repository management. So, those 5 steps to doing this. You need to create branches. You commit work to the branches. You open a pull request for help or merging into these branches. You merge branches into the master, and deploy the master in production. The dangers of the change approval process. So things to watch out for when making changes are prevent the change from going into production, so that you can adequately test that and stuff, so that if there are going to cause problems, find that out before it goes and actually affects the whole company. To enable faster detection and recovery by having engineers the ability to kind of deploy things ahead of time, and we don't have to wait so much, so they can get testing. And then third, with better testing practices, the risk could be identified earlier, like we mentioned before, and we can cancel any risky deployments if we know something's going to cause a problem. Well, we can cancel it way before it goes in. We can get this in to where the developers can be in the testing. Some potential dangers of overly controlling changes. Having structures that require, going through multiple levels of management to approve, with way too many questions. Anything that slows this process down. These likely controls we often put in place when change control failures occur. So when we have problems, it often prompts management and those people to develop more complex systems that bog this process down. We'll add more questions to a change request form, add more authorizations, and we're talking about going through multiple levels of management. We'll require more time before changes can be approved. Saying, instead of 1 day waiting, we could change to 4 days or 2 weeks or whatever it takes, whatever management feels like is required. These controls often add more friction to the deployment process. What you should do is create effective control policies that are more closely exemplify peer review, relying instead of going through more levels of management to approve changes, having more of the peer engineers do the checking and the corrections. This will reduce our reliance on the external bodies as you go through multiple levels of management. You inevitably have to involve more departments, and these things really bog things down. We also need to coordinate and schedule changes effectively. So make sure that we do everything we can to really reduce that friction. So enabling coordination and scheduling of changes. We need to be coordinating to ensure that we don't interfere with each other. To mitigate these risks, we must use chat rooms to announce changes proactively and find collusions that may exist. Find it much faster. At different companies I work for at some places where use a chat room, just like a heads up, change happening, or this is affecting this. So you can just quickly get the word out there to all the people involved, rather than writing a kind of like a chain email or whatever, and you have to add everyone to the email. You have to really go through and make sure, we're getting this all done right, and that takes more time. So chat room is definitely the way to go there. We may deliberately schedule our changes where representatives from the teams get together, not authorize changes, but just schedule and sequence these changes in order to minimize accidents. Again, makes sense, just need like a chat message so that it gets quickly out to the people that are involved. We're not asking, something very formal to change these. So email still has its place, but oftentimes the word just needs to get out quickly at first. So we want to enable peer review of changes. The guidelines for code reviews include everyone must have someone to review their changes. They need to have some peer that will go over them and double check their work. Everyone should monitor the commit stream of their fellow team members. So the team needs to work together to take responsibility for any code that's submitted or pushed out by any other member of their team, and define which changes qualify as high risk and may require review from designated subject matter expert. So, and when we're doing these kind of things, we may say, hey, if the code you're writing touches a particular part of the program, then it requires review. You can't just do like peer review or something. Like, it needs to have other people be reviewing it to really check how it affects. Again, this can help speed things up by not checking every single commit, focusing on critical areas. Potential dangers of doing more manual testing and change freezes. When testing failures occur, our typical reaction is to do more of that kind of testing. And that can be dangerous. These manual testing is naturally slower and more tedious than the automated testing and performing additional testing. Although it might be nice to get closer to like actual use case scenarios, or going through stuff you'd expect the customers to do. It's important that we only focus that in certain areas, not all across the board. Again, slows us down. Integrate testing in our daily work as part of the smooth and continual flow into production, so that we know that we try to focus as much on having those automated tests, kind of being able to run in the background, test things as much as possible, and doing very little of this manual testing, only when absolutely necessary. And then we want to evaluate the effectiveness of the pull request in the process. Determine whether it is working effectively or not. We need to look at production outages and determine the peer review process for any relevant changes. We need to provide enough context for the reader and the documentation of what the change is intended to do. We got to describe a great pull request that indicates an effective review process, so that everyone has an idea of what it should look like as we're doing this. In conclusion, in the presentation, we discussed how to integrate practices into our daily work. We discussed how to increase the quality of our changes and reduce the risk of poor deployment outcomes that will reduce our reliance on the approval process. It talked about creating the conditions that enable change implementers to fully own the quality of their changes is an essential part of the high trust environment we seek to achieve. And these conditions enable us to create an even safer system of work. Thank you so much.